to lock up the MVP this weekend in this matchup versus the Titans?
Yes, I think it's a wrap. I think it's a lock, and it's because Aaron Rodgers is out there performing better than anybody else at the NFL level, especially at the quarterback position. I know where you're going. I know you very well. I don't want to hear a counter to this because I'm going to give you some numbers, and I'm going to give you some arguments that I don't understand how you can counter that. Aaron Rodgers leads the NFL with 40 touchdown passes and 118 passer rating. Anything else? I mean, what else is left? What are you going to start talking about? Air yards? How else you be? Wait a minute. Am I number one in the NFL in throwing touchdown passes? Yeah. Do I have the best rating of all quarterbacks? Yeah. What else are we talking about? To win the MVP, you got to win in two columns. One is with the numbers. I just gave you the numbers. And one is with the narrative. Oh, that's when it really gets ugly. That's when it looks like Brooklyn versus Golden State opening night.
That was bad.
That was bad. That was bad, and this is going to get ugly, too. As close as Patrick Mahomes is to Aaron Rodgers, which I assume everyone thinks this is a two-horse race, it's not really when you start thinking narrative. Aaron Rodgers was left out to dry. They didn't draft anything he needed. And then when they did draft, they drafted at his position in the first round, giving up assets and resources that could have helped this team go farther than it did last year, which was one game away from the Super Bowl. And Aaron Rodgers was sitting there like, did I just hear that Carson Wentz got a phone call from his organization saying, hey, we're interested in another quarterback just to let you know it's going to be okay, everything's fine. We know they were lying in because of what's happened now. Aaron Rodgers wasn't even given the courtesy of that same phone call. A potential GOAT, certainly your franchise quarterback, was left out there to die. And did he die? Nah, he just went out there and started killing everybody. So by the numbers and by the narrative, it is Aaron Rodgers' trophy to lose.
Oh, I don't mind that take. I'm going to come out the gate with a haymaker, have some fun, and then end it again.
Let me duck right
The first thing is very, very simple, Sel. The last three quarterbacks who won 15 games or more in a season won the MVP. Last three quarterbacks, 15 games or more in a season, won the MVP. Okay. That's the first thing, and obviously, as you know, Patrick Mahomes is on pace to win 15 games. Marcellus, I used to hang out a lot more frequently now.
You think?
That didn't have money. So I used to hang out with some broke people. And the great thing about broke people, they just laugh more. I think maybe because life is just more comical. When you got more money, you get stressed. But you can have different conversations with people that have bread. And Marcellus Wiley, America, he has bread.
I'm not talking to you.
Let's have a conversation, Sal.
What?
The difference between somebody that makes $1 million and $1.2 million is not a big difference, at least not to me, because you're not crossing another landmark, right? If you were to make $1.5 million or $2 million, that's different than $1 million. But if you make $1 million versus 1.2, there's not a big difference. You're not crossing a big landmark. That's how I think about this Aaron Rodgers-Mahomes conversation. You bring up touchdowns.
Wait a minute. Did you just say, you bring up touchdowns? That's what the game's about. I bring up touchdowns. You care about points.
Hey, he brought up touchdowns, so let's talk about it.
What else are we going to talk about?
You bring up touchdowns. Aaron Rodgers supposed to end the season with, what, 44, 45 touchdowns? Patrick Mahomes supposed to end the season with 40, 41 touchdowns. That's a negligible difference. I call it standard deviation. It's not a big difference
but
there.
Who's winning?
See, now, if Aaron Rodgers were to have 50 touchdowns to Patrick Mahomes' 40 or 30, that's a different bracket. But you know about money because you have a lot of it. So you know about tax brackets. See, certain amounts of money can move you into another threshold, into another tax bracket. But Aaron Rodgers and Mahomes, they in the same tax bracket of touchdowns. So where is there a different tax bracket? Where is there a difference that's not negligible? That is in both wins, because Patrick Mahomes, with winning 15 games, assuming he wins out, is in a different tax bracket of wins, but also in passing yards. Because Patrick Mahomes on pace to eclipse 5,000 passing yards. Only 12 times in NFL history has that been done. So I'm not mad at your take, but because you have money, you understand this tax brackets, bro. And as long as Aaron Rodgers end up in the same touchdown tax bracket, then there's really ain't no difference touchdowns. So you got to talk to me differently. Well,
that was strong.
Let's bring in somebody else who might have a difference of opinion. That's former Green Bay Packer wide receiver, Fox NFL analyst Greg Jennings. My dog looking fresh as always.
He is crispy
He took
today.
one day off, but he does look fresh today. So, G, do you expect Aaron Rodgers to lock up the MVP this weekend?
That boy look good.
You do.
I don't expect him to lock up the MVP this weekend. I do expect him to lock it up. It will be a challenge, and here's why. When you look at the way that they're playing and why they're playing, the Tennessee Titans are coming in town. They're playing for something. The Packers are still trying to lock up that #1 seed. And so you're playing against a team who wants something, and they actually play well when it comes to cold weather and running the football. So you're going to be playing to win, not so much playing for stats. When you look across at Pat Mahomes, this week they got the Atlanta Falcons.
Good take.
They pretty much are sold up. So he can play a little bit more for stats. And Andy Reid and that offense, they understand what is at stake. They're not playing for their #1 seed, so to speak. They're playing, okay, let's make sure our guy get another MVP. So you got two different style of games that can potentially be played. You got one team that's playing that in the Green Bay Packers, we got to just win. Now, if Aaron Rodgers shows out like he's done all season, I think he makes his case even more because the odds were against him, like Marcellus said, all year long. We expected Patrick Mahomes to do this and put up these types of numbers. We did not anticipate Aaron Rodgers putting up these type of numbers that he's shown us this year.
Yeah, man, it's a really simple conversation that only gets complex because both guys are almost at that same threshold. So then we're forced to split hairs. Let's start splitting hairs. Remember, whoever loses in this conversation is still an ultimate winner because we're talking about the two best quarterbacks this year. Acho, I must push back. You said that they're on pace, the Kansas City Chiefs, to win 15 games, and the last three quarterbacks that won 15 games also won the MVP.
Yes, sir.
A few weeks ago, the Pittsburgh Steelers were on pace to win 16 games. How'd that turn out? Okay, and then you say, well, that's not the Chiefs. Oh, who did the Chiefs play? Atlanta. You can look at their record and be like, oh, they sorry. Wait a minute, Atlanta? At the end of the season? Oh, that ain't what you want to see. You know why? Ask Tampa Bay about Atlanta in the end of the season. Ask everybody that played Atlanta last year at the end of the season. For some reason, when you count them out, oh, it's time to count them in. That's a problem. Then they follow that game up with the Chargers. Justin Herbert. How did that go week 2 when they faced each other? Overtime, slim margin of victory by the Chiefs. In Justin Herbert's first game ever as a professional. So in that game also, Patrick Mahomes, it was a tight one. That's my point. They could be 13-3, Acho. Then what you gonna say? Where's your stat there? And last point I gotta push back on is this tax bracket conversation. Because you wanted to go there. We just went through an election, and we know that tax is gonna change for a lot of people, especially people that look like us up here on television. I'm in the highest tax bracket. I love to talk to my people for real. I'm in the highest tax bracket. But you know who also is in the highest tax bracket? Can't go any higher. Jeff Bezos. Like, me and Jeff Bezos in the same tax bracket, but boy, does it look different. Correct? So I don't want to hear this argument of, well, you know what? Patrick Mahomes and Aaron Rodgers are basically the same. If you 1,000 feet away, it looks that way. Come a little closer. It look a lot different. And that's what it is with Aaron Rodgers and some of the numbers. #1 in primetime performances, #1 in passing rating and touchdowns. Come a little closer, Acho. I ain't Jeff Bezos.
Here's the thing. So when I get close, when I zoom in, when I take my microscope out and I really start looking at it, it's such a negligible difference. Now, if you want to go back to, what was it, 6th grade, when we had science class and you would take out the microscopes and start looking for, atoms and all that other stuff, right? Well, I don't even know if you can see atoms under the microscope. I don't think you can. But if you want to talk about that, then maybe Marcellus will find a sliver of a difference in passing touchdowns. But what is the bigger barking point? The bigger chip is if you have 15 wins on the season, if you have thrown for 5,000 yards, only 8 quarterbacks in the NFL history have done that. It's only been done 12 times, and you have to be no great mathematician to understand that 32 starting quarterbacks over the course of 50 years, plus or minus, that's about, 1,500 opportunities, and it's only been done 12 times. So if Patrick Mahomes does that, then your biggest argument for Aaron Rodgers is something off a Hollywood script. He was counted out He wasn't supposed to be the starter.
Narrative.
They traded up to draft a quarterback to replace him. Your biggest argument then, Marcellus, is something that you might take to a showrunner and be like, hey, can we sell this on Hollywood Boulevard? But that doesn't stick in the NFL. The fact of the matter is Patrick Mahomes will have more team success. Patrick Mahomes will have just as much individual success. I get that we live in L.A., but not everything has to do with Hollywood. Some things just have to do with facts.
Good point.
Since we're stripping it all the way down and we're talking every little nuance here, when we talk about the most valuable player, it's just that. It is who is most important to their team.